we're told to limit drugs, or not even do drugs. Like, hey, look, this is something you really need to be careful with. I know alcohol, as well, smoking. They're like, hey, look, this is bad for you. You're gonna have it. You need to cut down. Or alcohol as well. Even you'll have friends. You might be going out with them on the weekend, and that's sort of the nice thing about sort of when you start breaking from the norms in your group. People will say like, "Whoa, hey, what's going on?" Like maybe it was funny in medical school. One of the lecturers said we're talking about alcohol and alcoholism and how you gauge if someone's an alcoholic. And there's different scoring things. He's like, okay, how do you know if someone's an alcoholic? And someone's tried out like, oh well, there's this scoring system, whatever. And he was just like, well, the real world tells do they drink more than you? It's just like well, it's obviously, I mean, you're a doctor for God's sakes. Obviously, you're not going to be an alcoholic. So like, whatever you're drinking, if they're drinking that much or less, then that's totally fine. Like obviously he was joking, but that's how sometimes people can see it. And so, like, let's say you're going out on the weekends and you have a group of friends and you're going out, Friday, Saturday, whatever. But then all of a sudden you start like going out on Tuesdays and they're like, oh, okay, maybe an odd Tuesday here and there. But then your friends like see it now it's a Tuesday and it's a Thursday and it's Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then there's all of a sudden there's like, day drinking on Sundays and things like that. Your friends are going to, or you might have a word with you and it's like, hey, you might want to reel that back. I mean, this is starting to affect you. It's starting to get a bit out of control. You need to sort of have that sort of limit on that. So you have these sort of societal limits even on that. And then obviously the hard drugs, the illicit drugs, people would just be like, ooh, yeah, really, really shouldn't do that. And you're told and that that's supposed to be limited. With processed food, I mean, we're being inundated with people telling us that it's fine. That's not bad for you. There's actually, no, it's actually good. Oh, it's even better for you. All these processed seed oils, it's better for you than meat and animal fat. Oh, all these studies say it's heart healthy. Yeah, I can tell you exactly how much, you can take that study and $5 and get a drink at any bar in town. I mean, like it's worth nothing, because these are, um, that doesn't, you know, actually show you reality, like what's actually happening when people eat these things. People are getting sick, and you can have a study that says anything: who paid for it, who funded it, how was it done? Some survey trial. You give people a whole bunch of surveys. Say, hey, what'd you eat last year? And they try to figure that out, and you're trying to give something definite from that answer. I mean, it's just nonsense. These are junk studies. Medicine is one of the softest sciences out there. It's not even a science; it's an application of certain scientific principles, but it is completely soft. I mean, there's no scientific discipline or rigor that is evident in most of the literature in medicine. It's absolute junk. You can't get away with that in physics. You can't get away with that in chemistry, these sorts of things. Like you have to show concretely what something does, and even then they can be wrong. So with that amount of rigor, with hundreds of thousands of data points, sometimes that's even wrong. And so we think that we're going to get accurate answers by doing a survey and trying to ask people to remember every single meal that they've had in the last year, and you try to glean some information off that. Obviously, it's ridiculous, but we're even told you should limit drugs and alcohol. We're also being told you don't need to limit junk food. It's actually fine. Obesity is genetic. Just take Ozempic. That like, oh yeah, it's really the meat. It's really the this. It's really and so that's even more difficult for people because we're getting told the wrong thing too. So now you try to come off of this stuff like, hey, I'm gonna do a carnivore diet, and you get all these little trolls online going, oh, that's ridiculous. You're gonna die. You're gonna get killed, and sugar's not bad for you. I mean, there's people like um, uh, you know, weirdo Dr. Allo. I guess he's a cardiologist, but he talks about how cholesterol is the worst thing ever. Sugar's fine. Sugar's not a big deal. And I think he's talking about like Lucky Charms or Fruit Loops or something like that. He was like, but it's some sort of sugar cereal, and he was like a post. Someone screenshot it and made another post. Because I'm not going to waste my time looking at his stuff, but and it said, what's wrong with this, sugar cereal? It's just food. It's just food. But he rails against meat. He rails against animal fats, these natural foods that we've been eating for millions of years. But sugar cereal, that's food. What's wrong with it? It's just food. Food is food. Food is good for you. Can't be bad. You can't be addicted to food. That's what they say too. You can't be addicted to food, Joe. It's just food. You can't be addicted to food. It's like, I'm sorry, that shit is not food. Someone says to you, it's like, well, you can't be addicted to food. You can't be addicted to sugar. Sugar is just food. What would you say to them? Hey everyone, really happy to announce a new sponsor for the show and for everybody down in Australia, Stockman Steaks, who are delivering high quality grass-fed and finished pasture-raised beef and other meats, flash frozen and vacuum sealed to your door, something that I've been enjoying a lot of myself recently as well. They also have a great range of specialty items such as high-fat keto mince and carnivore beef and organs mince with liver, kidneys, and beef heart as well. So use code Chaffee today for a free order of beef mince or another specialty gift along with your order at stockmansteaks.com.au, and I'll see you over there. Thanks, guys.
Well, you can, and you know what? Like, this could be wrong, but my train of thought on this process. So I think we are naturally um, we're natural addicts. Now that's
Mm,
our brain telling us, get this now. Uh, and it's normally some sort of survival mechanism to make you feel better. Now, again, I could be wrong, but I do believe that there will have been times, hundreds, gather ages when we were eating what we were supposed to do. Whereas if we came across a beehive with a lot of honey, or if we came across a tree with a lot of fruit, as a survival instinct, we would have probably tried to eat as much of that as possible, and our brain would have said, keep on eating it till you can't stop, because that is going to give you that little bit of energy to maybe go and get the next animal. So I think it's embedded in us to want to eat more of these things. Now the problem is, so I don't think like you are. I think we're designed to be addicted to it, like as a survival mechanism. That's what I think. I could be wrong, but the problem is these days we don't need it for survival, and it's everywhere. So they are hijacking like a primal part of our
mm,
brain. Then just that's just saying survive, 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 survive. You need this to catch your next animal, or you will die. But it's so accessible to us now, and we don't need it.
mhm,
So, like, yeah, I think we are made to be addicted to these things,
mm,
but now it's everywhere. We've got to actually get rid of it so we don't end up with health problems. Because I guess
mhm,
nature would have regulated things for us.
mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
like as I say, it wouldn't have been around all the time. It would have been around maybe 1 month of the year. But
Mm,
we're as a society, and we've changed so much that when nature isn't regulating us anymore, we're making ourselves. So then what your brain tells you to do to survive isn't actually needed in the same way as it used to be. So
mhm,
yeah, I think anyone who says they're not addicted to sugar isn't addictive or food isn't addictive, I know it's nonsense.
mm.
I can't agree with it. Um, I guess you could even say like steak's addictive. Like we want to keep on eating it. Like it's nice, there is a tendency to eat more meat, but it regulates itself. But I don't feel like this stuff does. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Well, I know I totally agree with you. I mean, people talk about, I talk about how if something tastes bad, if it tastes bitter, that's your brain warning you, like, look, there's chemicals that your brain recognizes, says, look, these are bad for you, don't eat them. And that's just a normal, natural, biological response. And it's a fact. I mean, it's not my opinion, that's a fact. And I said, well, but, kids will eat, give them junk food and they'll just eat that. So obviously, that disproves that theory. It's like, well, no, that's not what I said. I said if it tastes bad, then there's a problem there. I didn't say if it tastes good, there's no problem there. It's just if it's bad. We have these things that are designed to taste good. And you get food scientists that taking out different chemicals, changing those chemicals to have a larger expression of flavor, even though there's no nutrition behind it. And so that tells your brain, like, oh, there's something really good coming in, and it goes into your stomach, and there's nothing useful there. And so you get this downpouring of this stuff, because the thing is your stomach has receptors that track up to your brain via the vagus nerve, and it actually sees which nutrients you have in your stomach. So the vitamins, minerals, proteins, fats. It can can actually see those in your stomach. And and that tracks up to your brain and lets you know. And so this is why, eating steak is self-limiting. You're eating that steak and your body wants those nutrients and it's saying, oh, okay, look, we've got those. And it's saying, hey, we don't need as much. We don't need as much. And now that taste response actually goes down. And so it's self-limiting. All animals know exactly when to stop eating. How? They don't have PhDs in nutrition. They haven't pulled out their calculators. It's like try working a calculator with a hoof. Like it's not gonna, they have to have some sort of natural response inherent to them that just tell them to stop, like, it's not really good anymore. And they're not going to go around eating shitty tasting leaves. They're just not. And so you're right. So is that it's actually, you touched on something that's very important here. It's called an evolutionary trap. You have these things that give that, ooh, that's good signal, but now it's attached to something that's not really good for you. So it's a trap. So food scientists use this evolutionary trap. They'll get these chemicals that give that, ooh, yes, that's good signal. But then they change it and they modify it so it gives an even stronger signal taste, but goes away very quickly. So it's not like this lingering flavor and you want more and more. And the thing is, it's not attached to an actual nutrient anymore. So now it goes into your stomach. Your stomach's looking, your stomach your body tracks nutrients, it doesn't track calories. And so now it's looking for nutrients. There are no nutrients there. And so your hunger doesn't abate. And so that big taste signal, it just keeps coming and keeps coming and keeps coming. Where if you're eating a steak, that taste sensation goes down and down and down until it doesn't taste good anymore. And I'm sure you've noticed that. And I encourage people, you eat fatty meat until it stops tasting good, because it will stop tasting good. And that's how you know that your body's had enough. Junk food, processed food that is designed to be addictive won't stop tasting good because there's no nutrition behind it. So for that flavor to go down, for that flavor expression to go down. So it's this, they're taking advantage of this evolutionary trap. It's just, ooh, that's really good, but there's no actual payoff. So you keep getting that hit. Also, sugar again is addictive. We'd find this in fruit. We'd find this abundantly in honey. The fruit that we're eating now is very different than the fruit that existed 10,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago. I mean, even, a few hundred years ago, some of these fruits have been radically changed. And as you look at, people can Google this, you just look at the origin of the original banana or the original mango, the original avocado, what these things were bred from. Usually a massive seed and very little, pulp meat, the fruit part that you actually want. And like bananas, just tons of seeds. There's not just much to eat there. And because that's the plant wants to move the seed, they don't, that's the drive. We wanted the sugar, so we cultivated these things that have more sugar, or things like tomatoes or avocados, whatever, to have more of the part that we want. So we've bred these things selectively. And a lot of the sweeter fruits have a massive increase in the amount of sugar that they have, 5, 6 times more or more of sugar in them than they would than their natural counterparts would. A little crab apple that would be natural out there. They're pretty sour. They're not very sweet. Now you get these, golden delicious sort of things, which aren't delicious at all. They're usually mealy, but they have a lot of sugar in them. A lot of these things will have sugar in them, and so we've designed these things to be much more sweet. And instead of, like you said, only being available once a month, 1 month a year, or a few weeks out of the year, these things are ripe, and it's going to be self-limiting because there's only so much of it. It's only around a certain part of the year, and it's not anywhere close to as sweet. It might not have even been all that interesting for people to eat back then. It's not going to be like getting a mango now. Original mangoes were very fibrous, not very sweet at all, and a big seed, and mostly seed in there. So, like they wouldn't have been as attractive as they are now. And they certainly weren't available like they are now. Whereas now you can be in northern England and get mangoes every single day, you know? And oh, why the hell is that? So obviously that's that's gonna be a departure from how we would have normally eaten. And people can knock it all they want, pretend all they like, but what a species has been eating the longest is what is best for them, flat out. Well, we figured out through technology that this. No, we haven't. No. That's just yours. That's just your assertion. It's wrong though. what we've been exposed to the longest is what is best for us. That's a fact. That's a biological fact. And people deny that. They're just, science deniers. They're just denying biology, or they just don't know. But but yeah, so there's evolutionary traps. Like there's like hummingbirds that like normally they go for these like little red flowers, and they're sort of elongated flowers. So they'll go in there and get some nectar out of there. Um, for a while, they use these little sort of fasteners on electric fencing in like different parts of America, like in the Midwest, and it was like a red color. So it was sort of kind of the same shape as these flowers that these hummingbirds wanted, these sort of long flowers, and also they were red. And so these hummingbirds would come in and sort of go in like they're trying to get nectar, and they'd hit the electric fence and they'd die. So it was like killing off all these hummingbirds. So that's an evolutionary trap. That's what they did. They had to change the color of it. They just changed the color, and now they weren't interested in it anymore. So it's that same thing for us. These food scientists and processed food companies, start, with the tobacco companies that bought up, Philip Morris and all these places bought up these big food manufacturers in the 80s. They became the largest processed food manufacturers in the world. They started trying to make things as addictive as possible. They had huge success with that, and all the other processed food companies started following suit. And they're taking advantage of that evolutionary trap in us. The sugar that we would not see all that often. We would not necessarily find just beehive. And you'd have to like deal with the bees. Until we managed fire and figured out how to smoke these things out, that wasn't really an option. I mean, you could die from the amount of bee stings that you get trying to raid a hive. So that's something we had to figure out, and you're not going to find it every single day. You know, and so and especially with the fruit, there's only going to be available at certain times. So we sort of noticed that as like, okay, this is safe. This is going to give me some energy. This can help me through the winter, maybe, or give me that boost of energy so I can go and get a kill. But now we're just getting it every single day, and it hits that evolutionary trap of just eat, 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 and it's very addictive. And unfortunately, the food companies are taking advantage of that. Hey guys, just want to take a second to thank our sponsor, Carnivore Bar. I don't promote many products because honestly, all you need to be healthy is to just eat meat. For those times that you're out hiking, road tripping, or stuck at work and you want a nutritious snack that is just meat, fat, and salt if you want it, the Carnivore Bar is a great option. So I like this product not because it's just pure meat, but also because I want the carnivore market to thrive as well. And the more we support meat-only products, the more meat-only products there will be available in the mainstream. So if this sounds like something you'd like to get behind, check it out using my discount code Anthony to get 10% off, which also applies to subscriptions, giving you 25% off total. All right, thanks guys. It was one thing too, I was thinking of, we were talking about like alcohol and things like that. Even diet can actually help with these sorts of things. Like there are studies with ketogenic diets when alcoholics are coming off of alcohol withdrawal, and sometimes you have to be in rehab and things like that, or not even rehab, in the hospital, because if you're really addicted to alcohol, the withdrawal can be very dangerous. And so coming off of heroin, while it's very uncomfortable, you feel like you have just like the worst flu ever. People say the same thing about if they're heavily addicted to sugar too. Sometimes they feel like they get a flu, that keto flu, things like that. That can be from withdrawal. But with alcohol, it can actually be dangerous. You can get seizures, and you can die. Seizures can be fatal. And so they have to give them benzodiazepines to sort of slow down the DTs. And there's certain criteria on the nurses or doctors might be observing them. So okay, if it gets to this point, then we're going to give another dose of this. And so they did a controlled trial with alcoholics, and so they had one group on a ketogenic diet and one group just eating whatever, and both coming off of alcohol in the hospital. And they found that not only they did subjectively, like the people expressed it, like, hey, this was easier for me. I didn't, rating their level of withdrawals and how bad they felt with it. They were ranking them much lower than the other group. But then objectively, the keto group didn't need as much benzodiazepines to keep them out of the DT. So they actually detoxed and withdrew much more easily and much more readily than the other group. And I think that, that again, that there's the addictive aspects of all of these things. And we start getting rid of one, it becomes easier to, get rid of the others. And also your brain sort of working a bit better, you're a bit more clear, and you're like, yeah, I don't actually need this other substance to, play a role anymore. I'm actually good without it. They need medication, but maybe those medications aren't working so well, so they turn to, illicit drugs and alcohol in order to help something, to make them feel better in some way. But it could very well be that, people turn to these things even if they don't have something as severe as that, but they just feel like garbage.